Chicago just got hammered 4+ inches in Joliet, 267 in a single hour at Midway Airport. And y'all, that 73 mph gust at Midway, second time this year they've clocked 70+. My goodness. Today the threat shifts east a slight risk, covering 32 million people from the mid-Atlantic into the Carolinas. Storm Prediction Center flagging an isolated tornado threat with Supercells Helicity, near 225 meters squared per second. Out west, the central high plains are looking at severe hail and damaging wind gusts again this afternoon. 3 separate stories, one very active pattern. Our weather is absolutely loaded today, so let's get right into it. Walking you through exactly what happened in Chicago, what the Ring of Fire setup actually means. And then we pivot to what's coming today for Virginia, North Carolina, and the High Plains. Let's go. Here's everything we're covering today. Number 1, the Chicago Ring of Fire aftermath and those historic rainfall totals. Number 2, today's slight risk for the Mid-Atlantic and Carolinas tornado threat, supercells, and severe wind. Number 3, the Central High Plains round of afternoon convection hail and isolated severe gusts possible. Number 4, the upper-level pattern driving all of this, the 300 mth jet stream and divergence setup. Number 5, safety actions by region, plus your multi-day outlook heading into the rest of the week. A lot to cover. Let's start with the most urgent story, what just happened to Chicago and why it matters. All right, what went down in the Chicago metro area yesterday was a straight-up big-time weather event. NWS expert Frank Wachowski confirmed 3.31 inches at Midway Airport, and get this, in just 1 hour alone. 267 fell in 60 minutes, 1 hour. That's not a downpour, that's a waterfall over Chicago. O'Hare checked in at 180 inches Monday solid numbers, but nowhere near what Midway picked up just south. And the wind 73 miles per hour at Midway, borderline Category 1 hurricane force right over Chicago, unreal. Second time this year, Midway clocked 70+ mph wind, and we're still in July, y'all, still in July. Here's the quirky detail of the day. While Joliet drowned under 4.32 inches of rain, areas 30 to 40 miles west of the metro escaped with zero, not a single drop. Zero, classic Ring of Fire. So what exactly is the Ring of Fire? Here's how this works, and it's the most underrated pattern in meteorology. Picture a giant donut of extreme heat sitting over the Midwest heat indices topping 110 degrees at scores of locations. That donut of hot oppressive air acts like a bullseye storm. Clusters rotate clockwise around its outer edge. Picture cars circling a roundabout storms keep firing and looping around that blistering core of hot air. One of those clusters charged south as a squall line nearly 300 miles long, the full length of Lake Michigan. Here's the secret weapon that made these storms so devastating: precipitable water sitting at 240 inches. Precipitable water tells us how much moisture can be squeezed from an air column reaching 30,000 feet high. 240 is extreme, well above July climatology for Chicago. Atmosphere was basically a saturated sponge. On your screen right now, that precipitable water map, see that 2.4 contour sitting right over the Chicago metro. Thunderstorms don't just drain one air column's worth of moisture, they concentrate and funnel moisture from a wide area. Rainfalls can actually exceed the precipitable water value, and that's exactly what happened in Joliet yesterday. 432 in Joliet, highest preliminary total recorded against a 2.40 precipitable water environment. Remarkable. Check out these preliminary rainfall totals, and y'all, these numbers are absolutely off the charts remarkable. LaGrange 3.78 inches, Evanston 350, Griffith, Indiana checking in at 338 inches. Rogers Park in Chicago proper 3.07 inches. Bloomingdale near Spring Creek Reservoir 3.02 inches. Deerfield 2.96, Lake Forest 2.84, Crete 2.80 inches. Widespread significant flooding rainfall all around. Merrillville, Indiana 269, Munster 267, Goodenow and Will County 2.65 inches of rain. On that NWS rainfall map on screen, the yellows, oranges, and reds paint a remarkable picture of this event. Deepest reds cluster south and southwest of downtown Chicago. That 432 Joliet total stands out in dark red. Now, on this radar from early this morning, this is the Ring of Fire playing out visually, frame by frame. See that arc of intense red returns, sweeping from the northwest down through the Chicago metro corridor. That's it. That classic curved band of intense echoes yellow, orange, red rotating around the heat dome core, textbook. Blue returns to the west and east, show lighter precip heavy core concentrated right through the metro. And here's the interesting thing, that squall line structure in the north charged down along Lake Michigan's entire western shoreline. Up on the 300 millibar analysis, that's upper atmosphere. About 30,000 feet, this shows the big picture driver. That jet stream sits well north of the Midwest, allowing that heat dome to bake unchecked below it all day long. Magenta divergence contours clustering over the Great Lakes. That upper-level divergence is the lift mechanism here. Divergence aloft acts like a vacuum cleaner at 30,000 feet, sucking air upward, fueling explosive storm development. Extreme moisture heat dome, rotating storm clusters. Divergence aloft, all aligned for a big-time event Monday. Worth noting for the record books, heat indices above 110, combined with 4+ inch rainfalls in the same metro area. Not just a thunderstorm, this was a full mesoscale convective system wrapped around an oppressive heat dome. New heat records set at multiple stations alongside the flooding rains, a remarkably rare double punch for late July. Chicago has seen Ring of Fire setups before, but 2.40 precipitable water combined with a 4-inch plus total really stands out. All right, Chicago, if you're dealing with flood cleanup today, here's what to know heading into Tuesday afternoon. Temperatures remain high. Heat indices could approach dangerous levels again through the afternoon hours Tuesday. Do not enter flooded roadways. 6 inches of fast-moving water can knock you off your feet. 2 feet floats a car. Check on elderly neighbors when heat and flooding combine. Seniors and those without power face the highest risk. Now let's pivot to what's happening today across the eastern U.S. A fresh, severe weather threat is ramping up. SPC Storm Prediction Center issued their Day 1 outlook valid noon today through noon Wednesday. Let's break it down. A slight risk level 2 out of 5 stretches from the mid-Atlantic southward into the Carolinas today. That slight risk covers roughly 157,000 square miles and affects over 32 million people across the region. Major cities inside the slight risk: Baltimore, Charlotte, Washington, D.C., Virginia Beach, and Raleigh, North Carolina. Marginal risk level 1 out of 5 extends further, including Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and Colorado Springs. So what's setting this up? An upper-level trough is digging south-southeastward into the eastern U.S. through today. An associated cold front pushes into the central Appalachians, and that front is the trigger for storm initiation. Ahead of that front, a moist, unstable air mass sits in place surface dew points in the lower to mid-70s Fahrenheit. Mid-70-degree dew points in July, that's not just humid. Y'all, that's borderline tropical. Walk outside, feel like the Gulf. Storms fire, first around midday in the higher terrain of northern Virginia and Pennsylvania. Watch those mountains. Those storms then expand south through the afternoon, sweeping through Virginia into North Carolina by evening. Here's where it gets serious. Strongest instability focused from southeastern Virginia into central North Carolina. ML Cape storm energy is forecast to peak near 3,000 joules per kilogram. That's significant for a summer setup. 3,000 joules per kilogram means big, explosive thunderstorm towers, the kind that can go severe in minutes. Wind shear running 40 to 50 knots in the 0 to 6 kilometer layer. That's enough organization to support rotating supercells. Here's the signal that really caught my eye. Storm relative helicity forecast near 225 meters squared per second. Helicity amplified by strong directional shear is exactly what SPC cites in supporting an isolated tornado threat. Helicity measures how much rotation is available in the lower atmosphere. 225 is a meaningful, action-worthy value. Think of helicity as the difference between a storm just raining on you and one trying to spin up a tornado. On that tornado probability map on your screen, the 5% contour covers a corridor centered on Raleigh and Richmond. 5% within 25 miles of a tornado sounds low. It's the same threshold used on significant outbreak days elsewhere. Raleigh, Greensboro, Durham, Richmond, and Newport News, Virginia, all inside that 5% tornado probability zone. A 2% tornado probability extends further west, covering Charlotte, Washington, D.C., Virginia Beach, and Chesapeake. Pulling up the wind threat map, this is where the biggest risk covers the broadest population across the region. A significant swath of the mid-Atlantic and Carolinas sits under elevated severe wind gust probabilities today. Supercells and organized multi-cell line segments, both capable of severe gusts, 58+ mph damage threshold today. Severe gust potential extends west into the Appalachian foothills, west central North Carolina and northern South Carolina. On that Day 1 hail map, a 5% hail probability covers the Carolinas corridor and a separate zone over the high plains. All right, if you're in the mid-Atlantic or Carolinas, here's the timing to know for your specific city. Northern Virginia and Pennsylvania storms could initiate as early as noon. Watch the western mountains for development. Central Virginia through the Richmond corridor, most active. Severe weather window looks like 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern. Raleigh, Greensboro, Durham prime window looks like 3 p.m. through 8 p.m. as storms push south and organize further. Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Chesapeake watch for storms pushing east, reaching coastal areas by late afternoon to evening. Charlotte and northern South Carolina on the southern fringe storms may arrive closer to 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. time frame. Conditional factor to watch: how well organized does storm mode look across the mountains by late morning today? Storms forming a coherent line early in the terrain that accelerates the southward push and moves the worst window forward. Storms staying scattered through early afternoon severity stays more isolated. Supercell tornado risk stays limited. Forecast will be updated through the day. Keep a weather app active. Stay connected to your local NWS office. Bottom line, Mid-Atlantic and Carolinas today is level 2 out of 5. Slight risk. Do not sleep on this one. Shifting to the Central High Plains, a separate, isolated, severe weather story is unfolding out west this afternoon. Meanwhile, out in the Central High Plains, a totally different storm setup is developing this afternoon. A mid-level ridge sits over the High Plains today with a subtle shortwave trough rotating through from the west. That shortwave plus topographic lift from higher terrain will force scattered storm development this afternoon. Storms build in the mountain's beautiful towering cumulus early, then move east, where instability is fully loaded. Rep soundings at 2012 says show MLKP storm energy in the 2,000 to 2,500 joules per kilogram range. Solid energy.
Wind shear around 30 knots. Steep low-level lapse rates. Surface temperature dew point spreads near 30 degrees Fahrenheit.
30-degree temperature dew point spreads mean a very dry surface layer, and that supercharges downburst potential. Rain falls through that dry air layer, evaporates, creates a refrigerating effect. Air plunges down as a cold blast. Result isolated downburst wind gusts, potentially 60 to 70 mph, even from storms not looking impressive on radar. Hail also on the menu for stronger cells pushing east off the mountains. Those that fire can be very robust. On that categorical outlook, see that dark green marginal risk oval centered over the Central High Plains. Level 1 out of 5, but level 1 days still produce severe weather. They're more isolated and harder to pinpoint. Colorado, Kansas, Nebraska, Wyoming today afternoon outdoor plans deserve a second look with radar on hand. Storms develop fast in this environment. Clear sky to large hail in under 30 minutes is not unusual out here. Timing storms initiate 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. local, then move east through the evening. Watch that radar this afternoon. All right, Chicago Ring of Fire aftermath covered, Mid-Atlantic threat covered, High Plains round covered. Good. Going deeper now on the Mid-Atlantic setup, specifically that tornado threat, because it's meteorologically significant. Taking a look at this frame-by-frame instability and shear combination here is legitimately diabolical for midsummer. Official probability 5% tornado risk within a 25-mile radius in the highest threat zone. That's the SPC number. Bullseye runs from southeastern Virginia through central North Carolina, Raleigh to Richmond is the core corridor. ML Cape near 3,000 joules per kilogram plus 40 to 50 knot shear. That's squarely in supercell parameter territory. Those two ingredients together are why SPC flagged supercells specifically, not just generic storm clusters. Supercells differ from ordinary thunderstorms. They have a persistent rotating updraft called a mesocyclone. Rotating updraft is what makes supercells capable of producing tornadoes, very large hail, and destructive gusts. About that model uncertainty, it's pretty wild, and you deserve to know what forecasters are currently debating. Key variable, how much directional shear develops in the 0.3 kilometer layer ahead of the cold front by mid-afternoon. Best case front stall slightly west, less directional shear. Storms stay pulse type. Tornado risk stays minimal. Middle scenario, most likely front pushes on schedule. A few supercells develop. Isolated tornado with damaging winds. Worst case, faster front enhances the low-level jet. Helicity spikes past 300 more coherent supercell outbreak possible. We are not ruling out the worst case. That's exactly why SPC went slight risk over marginal for this particular setup. Significant tornado parameter STP across southeastern Virginia and North Carolina forecast around 1 to 2 today. STP of 1 means strong tornado less likely, but not off the table values. Pushing 2 raise that significant tornado concern. Here's the interesting thing about this setup. It's a classic summertime synoptic tornado threat. Different from spring. In summer, such extreme moisture and instability mean even modest shear can support tornadic supercells' unique setup. That directional shear component where wind changes direction dramatically with height is the key wildcard today. Directional component maximizes around the 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern window. That's when tornado potential peaks today. Once again, the second things hit the fan across Virginia and the Carolinas today. We're monitoring this closely. Conditions evolving toward worst case, we may go live. Make sure notifications are on so you don't miss that. All right, getting into specific safety actions by region now, knowing the threat is only half the battle here. Chicago and the surrounding metro, today's primary threat is ongoing flooding impacts from yesterday's historic event. Do not drive around barricades. Do not walk through moving water. Flooded street treated as impassable, period. Virginia, Raleigh, Richmond, Charlotte, charge your devices fully by noon. Severe windows begin mid-afternoon. Know your shelter location now before any storms develop. Basement or interior first floor room away from windows. Tornado warning issued for your county. Do not try to outrun it by car. Get into a solid structure immediately. Mobile homes, trailers, RVs, no real protection from tornadoes. Even EF0 can flip a trailer. Have a plan now. Nursing homes, assisted living in the Carolinas or Virginia, if families in those facilities. Check in with them today. High Plains folks doing outdoor work or recreation this afternoon, watch for anvil clouds building to your west. Flat anvil-shaped cloud at the top of a distant storm. That storm is mature and potentially severe. Get inside. NOAA Weather Radio remains one of the most reliable warning tools, even asleep. Even phone silent, worth having. All right, y'all, wrapping up with your multi-day outlook because there's still more to track beyond today. Today, Tuesday, July 28th, peak active day for the mid-Atlantic and Carolinas. Severe window runs through tonight. Into Wednesday, cold front pushes east and offshore. Convective activity diminishes along the eastern seaboard. Heat dome over the central U.S. is slow to move Midwest, and Ohio Valley remain at elevated heat risk through midweek. No major severe weather outbreak immediately on the horizon for Chicago, but dangerous heat indices possible Wednesday. Broader pattern features a persistent ridge over the southern plains through week's end, heat locked in across the region. Ridge keeping heat locked in also keeps storm tracks focused at the margins, northern plains, Great Lakes, and East Coast. Thursday and Friday, next shot at widespread severe weather may emerge across the Mississippi Valley. More on that tomorrow. In my view, Wednesday through Friday has the highest ceiling for the next significant outbreak. That's the period to watch. Worth noting, no tropical systems threatening the continental U.S. today, July 28th, per NHC confirmation. Atlantic and Gulf are quiet for now, but peak hurricane season is arriving, and that bears watching going forward. All right, wrapping up with 3 key takeaways from today's forecast. These are the ones that matter most. Takeaway 1, Chicago and the Metro just lived through a once-in-a-decade Ring of Fire event, 4.32 inches in Joliet. Takeaway 2, Mid-Atlantic and Carolinas face a real tornado threat today, level 2, out of 5 worst window this afternoon. Takeaway 3, heat dome plus Ring of Fire plus synoptic tornado threat, all running simultaneously, 1 for the books. Virginia or North Carolina, share this right now with your family. They need to know what's coming this afternoon. Chicago area recovering from yesterday's flooding. Share this with your neighbors so they know today's risks too. Hit subscribe if you're not already with us. Notifications on so you catch any live coverage if conditions escalate. God bless all first responders working through Chicago's flooding aftermath and those headed out across the mid-Atlantic. Stay weather aware, Virginia. Stay safe, Raleigh. Stay safe, Chicago. And I'll see you in the next one. All right. God bless y'all. Weather is always changing. Stay informed, stay prepared, and stay safe out there.